We say to girls,
what is your podcast?
you can have ambition, but not too much.
Gonna be yapping and cackling away?
Naturally.
If I looked feminine, I would not be taken seriously.
I'm just a girl.
It's amazing how much you can get if you quietly, clearly, and authoritatively demand it.
I'm like the angel and you're the devil. With the white and the red.
That is true. Although, you know what? Like, I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with people about this, low-key, maybe a little bit behind your back and to your face, about how, like, in a lot of ways, like, you would think that Becca is the angel and I'm the devil. Like, that is, like on paper, that's what you would think. But let me tell you.
I'm like, wait a second, where's this going? Why?
Let me tell you, I'm just saying, like, in a lot of ways, I would say, like, you are much more devilish than I am sometimes.
What?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's just, like, kind of a funny thing that you would just, like, think that I'm
In what way?
the
am I more
crazier.
devilish?
You know, it doesn't matter.
It
Exactly.
does
Like,
matter. You
it doesn't
have to
matter.
say
Like, we
it
can
now.
talk about it
Because-
later.
No, we're talking about it now.
We can
We're doing
loop
it
some other
live.
people. It's all in love. This is all loving stuff. But I
Tell
just
me
think people would, like,
immediately.
expect me to be, like, you know, the wild one pushing the envelope a lot of times, and, like, low key, it is not. It's not
Oh.
me.
You mean a lot of our real ideas?
I mean a lot of things, Becca. I just am saying, like, a lot of things, like, you would think it would be me, but, like, she's out there.
That's funny. So, so the other podcast I have with the boys, sometimes that happens where they're like, Rebekah, we brought you on here to, like, class it up. I'm like, I don't know why you made that mistake.
I mean, because you have this, like, angelic persona.
I know.
And
then
then,
I end
you
up
know,
like roasting our guest.
then the devil comes out. It's very exciting to be friends with you.
I'm so glad. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you just never know. But okay,
Which
so
Rebekah are you
actually,
gonna get today?
actually, I kind of wore this, and for those of you just listening to the podcast only version with no video, I am in bright red, devil red, and Becca is wearing this, like, angelic, you know, shade of white,
And it's like
number.
got these super cute, like, lacy sleeves. It looks very innocent.
Very, very innocent. So I didn't actually try and dress as a devil, but I did dress in theme, because do you want to know what we're talking about today?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. That makes more sense why you were like, oh, I'm wearing red and you should wear green. I'm like, Christmas colors?
I know, it's Christmassy. We're talking about red flags, girl. Red flags, because they are so applicable to our everyday life as real estate agents.
They are.
You know, you get a home inspection report back. You got red flags. It's something we have to navigate. And you know what? In the dating market, I hate to say it, all I see is a sea of red.
But she paints them green. She's colorblind, our friends.
I'm literally colorblind. So that's what we're talking about today, because it's just, like, it's so applicable to our lives, and literally probably what we talk about, you know, 90% of our conversations, like, drink if you hear the term red flag, like drinking game
Let's
alert.
make this a drinking game. Yeah.
This is not a drinking game, but if it was, you know, don't operate a
listen
motor
while
vehicle.
driving.
Yeah. Don't listen while driving. So we're gonna break it down, the red flags today. There's a lot of red flags that I've had to, like, learn how to identify as a real estate agent in Hawaii. Which, by the way, I'm Amber Haley. You are listening to Two Girls in the Market. I'm coming to you all the way from the Big Island of Hawaii, and I'm with my co-host here in the angelic shades of white over there, Rebekah Daniels in the PNW, Washington State. Hi.
Hello, which is the evergreen state. So I could have worn green and been in theme for
You could have.
for Washington, and you're wearing red for all that lava
Yeah,
in
hot.
Hawaii.
Hot lava. So yeah, we're talking about red flags. Do you know anything about red flags, Becca? Like,
Too much.
too much. Where do you want to start? Real estate market, dating market?
Should we call ourselves out for our personal red flags, or should we save those for the end? I think we should save them for the end.
Okay. Yeah.
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 All right,
Great.
so let's start with real estate, and then we'll mosey our way down to our personal lives after that.
Yeah. So I think if we don't really like learn what red flags are with our clients in real estate, we can really guide our clients kind of the wrong way a little bit. So I think in Hawaii, I got licensed like much later as a real estate agent in the state of Hawaii because I actually started my career in California. And I had to learn like a lot. I had a huge learning curve because the red flags we have in the state of Hawaii that we see over and over again with properties really different than in California where there's other red flags. So yeah, for me, it's been learning like the normal things, like when my clients see property, you know, they're browsing online a lot before they usually even connect with me, and they see property that's got like this crazy good price tag, right? They're like, what's the deal? Like, this is Hawaii. How is this house so affordable? That's a red flag.
Nothing's affordable in Hawaii.
Nothing's affordable. Or, I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I see really specific red flags that I had to like do work and like learn a lot about so that I could help point them out to my clients. And we have like weird things in Hawaii, like lava hazard zones and flood zones and tsunami zones. And we have a lot of properties that aren't permitted, you know?
My goodness. See, people give me a hard time because I live in a lahar zone here in Washington.
I'm sorry. A what?
A lahar.
Okay.
Which I'm surprised that you don't know what a lahar is, because it's like a mudslide zone that comes from earthquakes and volcanoes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We just don't use that term, I guess.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So that's one of your things.
So I live in a lahar area. We haven't had one in like 2,000 years. So
that means you're due.
That's what everybody says, and I don't believe it. I think we'll be fine.
Great. Stay delusional.
I will, but we don't have to have like special insurance or anything for a lahar like you guys do. But yeah, but I have people who are like, I don't want to live in a lahar zone in Washington because I'm very concerned about it.
Yeah.
And I just say, okay, we'll find you a non-lahar zone, non-flood zone, because floods we do have that here, especially if you're by the river. Because of the river migration. You want to make sure that you're far enough back. And so that would be one of those red flags that we have to look for here in Washington is, yes, you get that beautiful river creek view, but when it rains, because, you know, kind of rains a lot here, where is that river going to go? And is it going to stay inside, or is it going to come up to your back door?
I'm sure we have a lot of like similar like red flags. Like the flooding thing is like pretty normal too, but it is interesting like how nuanced each of our markets are. And even my market when I shifted over. So, I mean, obviously, I don't think we need to like define red flag for people, right? Like if you've been listening and following along and like alive and breathing, like you know what a red flag is versus like a green flag. Right. Okay, so you know, we'll
assume our audience didn't just wake up yesterday.
Yeah, we'll assume that. Okay, so we're all on the same page of like red flag city, right? So with my real estate transactions, sometimes we don't always see the red flags right away. Have you ever had that where it's like it all looks good? And so maybe your buyer, your client makes an offer and you're under contract. And so it's a good thing.
Inspection report back.
Yeah, we have like an inspection period, right? That's like, at least in the state of Hawaii, it's usually like 14 days for us. So when you go under contract with a property.
14 days?
Yeah, how long do you have?
Wait, 7 is long.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, everything's slower on an island.
We move fast. But again, you guys are also dealing with 45-day closing periods.
Yeah.
We're dealing with 30 days, 21 days.
Yeah.
Here. So we're all about like get in, get out. Sometimes we do 1-day inspection periods, or 3 is kind of the minimum that I like to do for my clients, but 7 would be the
3 days.
max. Yeah.
Wow. So it's so different. But it's really, really, that's like, I would say in my transactions, like the most vital point of a real estate transaction for my clients. Like we really need to be paying attention to the dates, and we really need to be paying attention to our due diligence. It's like so similar to the dating market. I can't wait to get into it. But so sometimes there's like red flags that like maybe don't look red. Maybe they look more like beige, or we just don't even see them. They're hidden. And so we do like an inspection. We have an inspector come in and look at all these things. And then all of a sudden, the stuff that we didn't notice and it wasn't super obvious pops up in our face, like structural issues or something that the seller disclosed later, you know, during the inspection period that is just kind of a deal breaker for us. So inspection periods are very important. And doing the due diligence, and then sometimes even just like trusting your gut and helping your client feel comfortable enough to make the right call for themselves of like how much risk they're willing to take and what red flags can maybe be remedied and what can't be ignored, and trusting their instinct on whether to move forward with the transaction.
Yeah, I think also learning to identify or learning how to search for those potential red flags.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first started in real estate, one of the first contracts that I got under, one of the first homes I got under contract, it was a flip. And it looked fine. Didn't look amazing when we went and looked at it the first time. It, had some staging in it. It was a flip. Sometimes they don't always have the best finishes, but it was a lower price point. That's what she could afford. And the inspector went through, and during his inspection, he moved one of the picture frames that was on the wall because he's an inspector. And apparently this is a thing that you should do. I didn't know. They didn't teach this in real estate school. There was a giant hole behind that picture frame that they use for staging. Along with a slew of other things. And so that was when I learned lipstick on a pig is the approach that so many people take to these homes and these flips. And so if there's staging and it's a flip, maybe, move the rug, move a picture frame, and just see like, what are they trying to hide with this staging, especially if it's like unusual staging, which this one kind of was. So I would say unusual staging is a red flag.
Unusual staging is a red flag. Yeah, definitely unusual staging. Or, sometimes stuff looks like kind of painted over, or like there's some really sloppy work, and you have to wonder when you see like really sloppy work on a house, like what's underneath what you can't see. If it's that sloppy on what they're showing, it makes you wonder. So when you spot these red flags, there are things that you can do. You can, if you still maybe want the house and there might be some potential, sometimes you can bring in more experts to do more due diligence. And then sometimes you can go back to the negotiating table and say, hey, we need this fixed.
Yeah. And obviously this is state by state.
Yes. And so, yes, very different. Thank you. Yeah.
Their inspection process and their inspection periods on their contracts. So we won't get into the specifics of that.
Yes. We'll speak in more general terms. Generally in some real estate and transactions, that's how it works.
Now, I know sometimes, like a lot of my first-time home buyers, when they get that inspection report back, they are like, oh my gosh, everything is wrong with this house. It's basically a tear down. What are we going to do? And then when I read the report, I'm like, oh, this is typical wear and tear type stuff, or like these are cosmetic items. Do you see a lot of that in your market as well? Okay.
So
universal experience.
It's a universal. I bet that's most markets. And so I'm sure you do the same thing. I often will prepare my buyer, especially if they're a first time home buyer, that when you hire an inspector, like they will find things. My inspectors are good. Even on a brand new construction home, they will find things. And if you've never seen a home inspection report, it can be very overwhelming. But when they have that expectation, it's very similar to the dating market that we'll get into in a few minutes, like where nobody's perfect. You're not going to have perfection. So you got to have realistic expectations. But yeah, absolutely. They can just like totally panic and be like, oh my gosh, it'll kill the whole deal if you don't know how to handle that and help them see like, okay, what are the big issues that would actually make you walk away from this property, and what can we negotiate maybe?
Yeah. What's an easy handyman fix versus this is going to be a major
foundational thing or something.
Yeah. And these are also things that you can look at there's some things that you can look at while you're showing the house the first time. So in Florida, one of the things that I would always look for is around the windowsills and around the doors. I'm looking for water drippage. I'm looking for soft paint to see if, especially because, it rains, to see if there's anything that's been coming through. I do the same thing here in Washington as well. Like looking at the ceilings to see, do I see any previous staining, water stains somewhere? And if I don't see it on the seller's disclosure, that's something that I have the conversation with that other agent of like, hey, we saw some stuff, yellow flag, potential red flag. What can you tell us about this? Because ideally, when you get to the inspection point, you want that to be those major hidden structural types of things. That's really the only thing that I want us to be surprised by on a report, because ideally we've looked at it really well and we're like, okay, yeah, there's some scuffs on the wall. Maybe the floor is laminate, it's not pushed together super well, but we've already identified these cosmetic items while we were looking there and decided that we are or are not okay with it, or built that into the price that we're offering.
Yeah.
And then, the red flags of, oh, the roof is destroyed. I can't look at the roof up. I can't get up there.
Yes.
So, those types of things.
Nor should you. I mean, there's also another part of this process is the importance of having good support team around you. So in real estate, like maybe that, certain very specialized inspectors that have licenses to make those calls, maybe a lawyer, different types of professionals that they can consult. We don't need Becca getting on the roof inspecting anything. Okay. Although
honestly, nobody wants me getting on the roof. For any reason.
Red flag.
If I'm on a roof, red flag.
Red flag. Red flag. But yeah, it's just something that's part of real estate. And if you're a newer agent, it's something that you will learn how to navigate and help with your client expectations, and you'll learn the things that you look for over and over and over again. So
But again, talking about support teams. So if you are a newer agent, I think it's great to lean on either your broker, or if you have a mentor or your team leader, when you do get that first report back, be like, hey, this is kind of scary. What is actually a major item and what's a minor item?
Yeah.
And one thing that a lot of our inspectors here do, and I'm sure they probably do it in Hawaii, is they'll kind of label on there things that are like major, things that are minor. And so that definitely helps a lot. That's something that has changed since I first started in real estate, and I love it. I think it's been a great update to the process, because it definitely helps educate the consumer a little bit more, and it doesn't just rely on the agent having an understanding of what's major and minor.
Yeah, for sure. And so a lot of times too, if we do want to try and negotiate something, we will start with those items that they usually do have, like probably literally on the report, like a red flag by them or something. Yeah. Depending on the inspector, of safety stuff. Like that's a lot of times the things that we'll like try and negotiate. The big things that are major.
Electrical panel. That would be like a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I feel like we got a good outline about how that affects us as real estate agents. So what about the other market? Do you ever encounter red flags in the dating market? What'd you say? Have you ever seen a red flag?
Oh, have I seen them and ignored them? Or yes. I mean, I've seen and ignored, and I've seen him and like, I'm walking the other way, because I've learned can't change those red flags.
Yeah.
They often stay red flags. Sometimes they turn into like, I think sometimes I make them yellow flags. I'm like, I'm not going to quite paint you green just yet, but I'm going to give you a yellow flag. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to wait for you to like make it very clear.
I think they call that a beige flag.
No, babes.
Oh no, that's not a beige. Oh
no.
Yellow is some sort of a warning, and beige could just be like just a thing, not good or bad.
A beige is just like it's like a boring characteristic trait.
Okay, like what would be a beige flag that you see in me?
Oh, in you?
Yeah, not to put you on the spot. But
I
anything
know.
beigey over here? Beige.
Your beige flag would be
nothing. I'm all red. She just sees red.
No. Your beige flag is that you have a lot of dogs. You have a lot of animals.
I do. Yeah. Okay,
so it's like, it's not a red flag. It's not like a green flag. It's just kind of like.
Yeah, it's just a thing.
I mean, some people may see it as a green flag. I've seen it said about other people. Like, I don't get the whole beige flag thing. That's why it's hard for me to come up with one.
Okay.
For you or other people. But I think other people said, oh, my boyfriend's beige flag is that he likes to eat animal crackers with his ice cream. And I'm like, that's what?
Yeah.
Why
guess,
is that a thing?
Yeah. So beige is just, it's a thing. It's a nothing thing.
It's a nothing thing. I think it's people who are taking things that are icks, but they're like, oh, I'm okay with my with this ick. And so it's a beige flag.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Not that you having dogs is an ick.
It's an ick to some people.
To some
and
people,
you know
it might
what?
be.
There's the door. There's the door.
That's funny.
Deal breaker. Oh, that'll be an episode for another week. Okay, so how quickly have you maybe like been on a date or just been in some kind of whatever with a guy? And how quickly have you spotted a red flag? Like, what is the fastest a red flag has been smacked across your face? Like, has there ever been like just like immediate no, where you saw it, you acknowledged it, and you're like, where's the door?
I see it on their dating profiles.
Oh,
all
the dating
time.
profiles.
That would be the fastest.
Okay, but in person, have you ever like maybe sat down at a restaurant? Bam, red flag.
Bam, red flag. They're usually pretty good.
Oh, I know one of yours. I know, I know more than you do about your own. Just kidding.
Oh, tell me one of my red flags.
Your red flag,
has, like, immediate come up.
Your immediate red flag for a man. You didn't even get to dinner yet because he hasn't even picked a gluten-free restaurant for you. Okay.
Yes.
He has not made a reservation. He has not made a plan. Immediate red flag. You're not even getting to dinner.
So actually, along those lines, if I've matched with a guy and his immediate thing is like, hey, do you want to meet up for a drink tonight? Like, or hey, are you doing anything tonight? Want to meet up for a drink? I'm like, red flag.
Red flag.
Like,
now, why is that?
To me,
Squirrel.
that says that they're just looking for a hookup.
Oh, okay.
Like they're
Probably
texting as many girls as they possibly can to see who they can hook up with that night.
Gotcha.
And whoever answers first, or whoever answers the fastest and is the prettiest in their mind or whatever, or they think is the easiest, that's the girl that they're actually gonna
okay. That night. So the last minute, what you doing tonight? That seems pretty across the board, like probably pretty obvious. But maybe they're just spontaneous. By the way, I have a theory.
If that's your opener, like we've never spoken.
No, Becca, I'm on the same page as you. Okay, I'm just saying, like, my theory is that men like to rebrand like apathy and inability to make a plan and the last minute what you doing, they like to rebrand that as spontaneity. So like your spontaneity, if you're gonna tell me like I'm so spontaneous, that's a red flag. Like you're gonna never put in any effort and you're gonna call it like I'm so fun and spontaneous. No, you're not. You just can't make a damn plan.
I'm a free spirit.
Yes, yeah, red flag.
I just can't be tied down.
Red flag.
There was one guy that I went out with, and I was on our second date. I think there were already like yellow flags, if I remember correctly. On the first date, he was talking a lot about his divorce on our first date, and you get in the history of somebody. And then on the second date, he owned a bunch of restaurants, and he owned a bunch of Chinese restaurants, I think. And so we went to an Asian restaurant. That was like a Korean restaurant. This was in Orlando. Great food in Orlando, by the way. And he was talking about the menu, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of things on here that I wouldn't eat, but you probably would, because I'm a more adventurous eater, I guess. But to me, I'm like, it's normal food that's on here." And then he was just, "Oh yeah, like a lot of the stuff that we serve at my restaurants, like I would never eat it. I think it's gross." And then he just started saying to me things that felt kind of racist about his staff,
racism,
and about the food. And
red
I'm
flag.
like, and like it wasn't overt racism. And so I called him out on it. I was like, "I don't want to go out with you again because I feel like you're kind of racist." He's like, "No, I'm not. I have Chinese employees. How could I be racist?" And I'm like,
that is right like there. The motto.
Like, that statement, the fact that you don't get it.
Yeah.
No.
The way that you treat other people. So if they are immediately bashing an ex, and trust me, I have some bad exes, but you're not going to see me showing up to a first date trashing anybody from my past. Like I do think that's an immediate red flag. Being rude to the wait staff, saying things like that,
speaking poorly about somebody else's culture
in a way that historically is in line with racism, whether I'm calling someone a racist or not, like those are huge red flags.
Yeah.
Because they should be showing you the best of them right now.
This is your first or second date and you feel this comfortable to say something like that to me. So when we know each other even more, what else is there underneath the surface that you're gonna be like, oh, I can really start talking?
Yeah.
Because to you don't think that that's a big deal.
Yeah,
so what else? What's hidden?
That's showing like a deep lack probably of self-awareness and disrespect. That's gonna be a no for me. Absolutely a no. But I also think like a red flag that maybe isn't as obvious as first, but one that I encounter a lot, and it's probably one that I like paint green a little bit more at first because it's like harder for me to identify, and it's like a little bit addicting, right? Like sometimes red flags are addicting. I don't know why. Like when we haven't like done the work on ourselves.
Trauma response.
No, it is like a trauma response. Truly, like you have to do the work on yourself so you can like, see these red flags for what they are, and determine if that is like something that you can't live with or shouldn't live with. But a big one for me is inconsistency. So if somebody like we've talked about this before, but if they are either saying or doing and acting in one way, and then all of a sudden like they drop off the face of the earth, or like it just totally shifts for whatever reason, like that is a huge red flag to me.
Without reason.
Yes, without reason. Like do not introduce me to a vibe you can't maintain. Like that's what I think need.
Like obviously people, sometimes stuff happens in our lives, and like maybe there's a family situation or like a work thing that comes up and you're not able to give an explanation immediately.
Yeah.
But don't pretend like nothing happened when that vibe changed.
Yeah, there needs to be communication. At some level, like, hey, at some point.
Sorry I dropped off for 3 days. I was dealing with this super crazy situation that was going on, and I just didn't have the brain space or the bandwidth to get back to you. To me, that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yellow flag-ish. It's not a green flag.
Yeah, maybe keep an eye on it. Green flag,
they communicate, but then, then you're checking to see, okay, is this a repeated thing? Is this something that keeps happening?
Yeah. Yep. That's a huge one for me. What's your next one that you encounter? What's one that like maybe takes you a while to pick up on?
Oh, one that takes me a while to pick up on.
Maybe you have to go through the home inspection first.
Pick up on red flags really quick. Actually, I've gotten really good at it.
You've gotten good at it. It is a skill, I will say. I feel like I wonder if I'm going to guess without having the numbers and the data in front of me that you have probably been on more first dates than I have.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And so I think you've probably acquired some like flag handling, identifying skills for sure.
I've gotten really good at vetting the profiles for red flags.
Okay.
And then vetting. So one thing in the messaging process. So if I'm on the apps, somebody who wants to get very like personal, very fast.
Okay.
To me, that's a red flag because I feel like they are trying to create emotional intimacy.
Yes.
Like before it's time. Like you do not need to know my deepest, darkest things. So like, okay, as a Christian, I see this a lot because I'm trying to date other Christian men. And to me, a red flag with that is when a guy's like, oh, what's the sin that you struggle with the most? And I'm like, why are you asking me this? That's a really weird thing.
That's a really weird question
to
ask.
It's a super weird thing. So ladies who are trying to do Christian dating, that's a red flag. And then they'll follow it up with, the thing I struggle with the most is like sexual sin. And like, it's really hard for me to stay pure. And I'm like, I don't know why we're talking about these things.
Interesting. I do think there is something to that. They are trying to get that like emotional connection.
And also they're just trying to get into your pants. Like, let's be very real on what that whole little situation is. And for those who are wanting to do that, that's y'all's choice on there. the people who are trying to manipulate you into a situation. That's the red flag.
It's a safe assumption to make. And yeah, it can be kind of like this kind of dishonest, like kind of controlling, manipulative thing. Exactly. Yeah. So I heard you mention something else that is a red flag, that it's when somebody has significant different mismatch, maybe like core values. So for you, you're looking for like somebody who shares similar faith as you. That's a really common thing, I think, for a lot of people. Like there are some things that certain people can compromise on, and there's some things that you can't. So for somebody maybe who like knows that they want to have a child or something, like that can be a deal breaker. And so maybe you could kind of consider it like a red flag if somebody is like totally on the opposite spectrum. But same thing, like if you don't share like the same like core values or faith or something like that, you have to really determine like what is in the most important to you, and like it could be like a red flag if they just really are very, very opposite on those things.
Yeah,
as far as going the distance.
Exactly. So for me, somebody who's not super keen on kids, or like speaks poorly about kids, or like, oh yeah, kids are kind of they're a lot, or they're this, probably. While that may not be like a red flag for other people, for me, that feels like a red flag, because I do want to have kids, and I do have my nieces and my nephews who I absolutely adore, and I have to find them a good uncle. My nephew's like, I told him about one guy recently, and he's like, he doesn't sound like a good uncle. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry. We're not bringing him around. So when the children are pointing out their red flags,
yeah,
red flag.
That's a pretty big one. Like that's yeah, some of them are pretty obvious here. Now, sometimes the red flags are like less obvious. So I have these little like, let's call them litmus tests sometimes that I use for men while they're in their inspection period. And like I have a couple of creative ones that I've come up with over time. They are not scientific at all. You know how I love science on this podcast.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you have any. But mine, you know, the big one that I had last year was Barbie Summer. The way a man responded to the Barbie film was a big litmus test to me. And if a man would not see the Barbie movie with me or had bad things to say, that was a red flag to me. To me, like, this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but like dismissing really powerful women, even if you don't like them, like even like, you know, Taylor Swift was really big over the last year. Like people like ragging on her, like, you don't have to like Taylor Swift. I don't care if you don't like Taylor Swift. But like, to me, like men, the way they respond to like women taking up space in the world.
If they respond poorly.
If they respond poorly. Yeah.
That's one of mine as well. Where it is looking at how do you handle something like this? How do you handle women's issues when they come up? Are you immediately dismissive? Are you downplaying them? Are you downplaying the accomplishments? Are you like, that's a dumb girl thing? Because this is something that's important to me.
Yeah.
So if we can't talk about this, if I feel like I am constantly having to justify why something is important to me in this realm, then red flag.
Red flag. I do have one other.
Okay, go ahead.
I do have one other fun litmus test that I've shared with you in the past. Do you remember what it is?
No.
So, you know how we all spend so much time on our phones?
Yeah. And, yes! The explore page.
So if you're like unfamiliar with Instagram, for example, or the algorithms in general, like how have you found us, first of all?
Right.
Why are you listening? but
please don't stop listening though.
You know, the algorithm never lies, right? So the types of behaviors and the things that we engage with and the people that we engage with, they shape the content that we are served at pretty much on any platform. So one like really, I thought it was clever litmus test I came up with, would I would just like throw somebody off and be like, oh, let me see your explore page on your phone. Like I don't sneak around. Okay. I'm not sneaking during my inspection period. But I will look, and then you can really tell because it's serving up, you know, like the content that they're engaging with the most. So if you pull up an explore page and there are some images on there that you are uncomfortable with, like that is a red flag.
Red flag. All right, Amber. Yeah. We have to pull up our explore pages.
Okay, but this is not, nobody's going to see this on mine. I'm going to be honest. And by the way, like my explore page is super toxic. So like I am in a glass house throwing stones. Like you could probably definitely judge me always from my explore page.
I don't understand mine right now. So while you're pulling yours up, mine has something about couples therapists notice patterns in couples who made it. I have an ADHD comic, which makes sense. POV, the walk to your Airbnb after wearing a long denim skirt all day.
That's strange. It's strangely specific.
I got some glutes stuff because
so some workout stuff. So you engage with workout stuff. You engage with travel stuff, I'm assuming.
Obsessed with upgrading my life. I deserve everything.
You deserve everything. Content. Self-help.
So I have comics, I have women empowerment, I have mom stuff, and I have real estate stuff and some couples therapy, apparently.
Yeah. You know what? We have been podcasting too for our phones have been listening, so there might be like a lot of red flags. How to spot red flags on mine. I'm getting a lot of relationship stuff and female empowerment, a little bit of real estate too. But yeah, that's a good way. So you guys can take that tip and thank me later. Check out their explore page. And you know what? I'm curious your take on this. Okay, so how do you feel like if you see a guy, maybe you're dating this guy, you're on like date 2, he passed date 1 with flying colors, and you're stoked on him.
Minimal yellow flags.
Or yes, let's be realistic. Minimal yellow flags. We passed with minimal yellow flags. But then all of a sudden you see, maybe you catch a glimpse of his explore page and it's all bikini women. And then you're like looking at his Instagram. Not that girls do stuff like this. Okay. Not that we don't fully stalk you first, but if you're on Instagram following Stephanie, Susie, Renee, I can't even think of girls' names. Rebecca,
Amber.
And you're liking every single post of like every girl. Like, what is you doing? Like, for me, that's a red flag. I'm sorry. It's a red flag. Like, it's not the biggest. Like, there are maybe reasons potentially to do it, but also, are there?
Okay, but it's also a red flag to like go stalk all of his followers.
We are not to the part of identifying my red flags yet. Okay, so we can save that until the end. Like, we're focusing on the men right now. Okay, just to be clear, we can circle back. But as if
just say,
as if I'm sorry.
Do you remember? You were probably on Instagram back in the day where it showed your followers' activity feed or like who you were following their activity feed.
No, I'm like kind of newer to Instagram, to be honest. Like I might have had an account, but yeah.
So back in the day, you were able to. You would have. Like in your notifications tab, you would have your notifications, and then you go to the next thing, and it would show what all of your followers, like whose posts they were liking.
Oh my god,
whose posts they were commenting on, and oh my gosh, so much drama happened there. I got in trouble with my boyfriend.
I'm sure
because he's like, "Why are you liking this guy's shirtless photo?" And I'm like, "It's a gym selfie, and he's a friend, and he like lost weight, and I like wanted to support him. Like, I'm sorry." And
so, interesting. Yeah.
And to me, that was a red flag that he got jealous about that whole situation.
I was going to say that. Like, red flag men when you like all the girl stuff. But if you're going to call me out for liking a guy's post, that is a red flag on you.
Well, he wasn't like liking a bunch of girl stuff. So
I know.
Like,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that is funny. Yeah, that is a red flag. Anybody who like shows signs of jealousy, to me, that is a big, big red flag. Because I have a history of being with people who are extremely jealous. And it's a miserable existence.
Yeah. To me, that's like, if you're going to question where I am, what I'm doing, you question my male friendships because we both have a lot of male friends.
Mm-hmm.
This is my field. I'm going to be talking to men. I'm going to be networking with men and women. But I need somebody who is not going to become insecure with that, who's not going to be jealous of that interaction. So if you are questioning me, like I'm a suspect when I haven't done anything wrong, red flag.
Yeah. Anybody who's like, where were you at? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Who is that? Oh, that's not going to be a fun relationship to pursue. So that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest ones that I can think of.
One that was brought up to me last night. This is by a guy. And he said if a guy is kind of like love bombing, but he's like, if he comes to visit you and like gives you flowers, like if he's coming to visit you for the first weekend, that you're hanging out and he gives you flowers every single day of that weekend, every single time he sees you and this is your first time meeting, that's a red flag. And I'm like, hold on.
Well, that's like a very specific with the flowers and all that, but I do think he's onto something with the love bombing. Like love bombing can be a huge red flag.
Yeah. But with like the gifting, I think I pushed back on it with him. I felt like some people are just, that's their love language, is they like to give gifts. They want to be romantic and do these special things. And so I don't think that there's anything wrong with that specifically.
Case by case basis. Like, let's bring in the specialist inspector and we'll figure it out. Like, it could be, but like, not necessarily. I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe looking at some of the other things around it.
Yeah. In context in all of that.
But also, like, that's where it's a personal responsibility of like whoever's on the receiving end to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Any of your early interactions, take it all with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean like you trash the guy's romantic efforts, but also don't fall for them.
Yeah.
Because they could be red flags disguised as green flags.
And by the way, not every red flag is a deal breaker. I mean, I like okay, Becca, I do have red flags. I'm great. Okay? Somebody's going to be lucky to have me someday. But, there are things that you need to take the information and see. I mean, I do think a deal breaker and a red flag are different. Now, a lot of the big red flags should be deal breakers.
I guess I see.
But some of them, you're like,
the red flags that are not deal breakers, they would have to turn into not red flags, or it could be something that could be resolved of like, oh, like an insecure, they're super insecure. But then that would stop being a red flag if they got over that insecurity, because it wouldn't be a thing anymore. So would you still have that red flag?
Yeah, I guess not. Now my brain is getting confused with the semantics.
So same thing with like the inspection report. Of like, yes,
you get it repaired.
Red flags, you get it repaired.
Re-inspected. You got to re-inspect sometimes. I always recommend a re-inspection by a licensed professional, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Okay, one of my biggest red flags, and this one really has taken me a lot of time to be able to identify.
In yourself or in them?
Well, it is because of, myself, but in men that I have dated. Because it looks a little different in every time I've encountered it. But whenever a man will take my response to a situation or a behavior or my feelings or anything like that, and instead of just validating it, they flip it, and my reaction to maybe something that they did or just something, literally anything. It could just be like the way life is affecting me or my feelings that day, and they make that a problem. So they like blame you, or they say, maybe they did something and it kind of hurt your feelings, and so you brought it up like, oh, like, when you do that, like, it kind of bums me out. And then they're like, well, clearly, like, you need too much validation from other people, like, then they blame you, and they're like, oh, but you are the problem, Amber. Like, actually, you are the problem. When you showing up as yourself in a positive way is like never a problem for the right person. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I found. I've been trapped in a lot of toxic patterns with people that I've allowed to stay in my life and kept painting those red flags green, because when I am being my most authentic self, it gets like flipped back on me. Like I'm doing something wrong, or I'm too emotional, or I'm too this, or I'm not enough this, or I'm too that, or whatever. And that is an ugly, ugly flag. And that's the type of person that no matter what my bond to them may be, like I know I need to not go that path anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one. But yeah, that's probably my biggest one. I think yelling at people and like seeing a lot of anger is another big red flag for me.
Yes, temper, red flag.
Yeah.
Oh,
6'4", 6'4", red flag.
I would say with the temper, it's especially a red flag if they refuse to see or admit that they have that temper. I had that with a guy that I was seeing, and I liked him, and he got very animated, and he's a sports guy, he's a football guy, former pro football player. And so like I understand that when you are in sports, like you're aggressive, you talk loud about things, you get really, animated sometimes. But he was, we're dealing with the situation and he's just yelling and it was making me uncomfortable. And I was like, hey, like, can you settle down? And he could not hear me because he was so caught up in everything that he was saying. We were on the phone, so caught up in everything that he was saying that he didn't hear me when I said it multiple times. And I did not like that. So when he finally simmered down and stopped talking, because again, monologuing, another red flag. That's first date red flag, monologuing. But once he had finished, I was like, hey, that made me uncomfortable. And I tried to have like a calm conversation. I was like, you were yelling. He's like, I wasn't yelling. I'm like, you were, because you couldn't hear when I said multiple times that you were making me uncomfortable. And he's like, oh, well, I didn't realize, but this is who I am. I'm just like, if I can't be who I am, if I can't be animated, like that makes me uncomfortable. And I'm like, I understand, like I want you to be able to like express yourself, but I also don't want to be yelled at.
Yeah.
And so if they can't, so to me that was a red flag, because if they can't find that compromise between like, okay, this person's comfort and your comfort and like how you want to express yourself, I think that we could have found a way to still like make that work where you're not yelling at me, but you're still able to express yourself. But you shouldn't ever be to the point of like, I have to express myself and you're so caught up in it that you cannot hear the other person or notice that the other person is asking you to stop.
Yeah. That's a big red flag. I've definitely been in that same situation with like very, very similar circumstances. And it is because you're not asking him to change who he is at his core, but relationships that are in flow with each other in alignment, there will be a give and a take. And at minimum, the expectation for me is for him to acknowledge your feelings rather than dismissing them. And then maybe you decide it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
But that is a complete like invalidation of like just basically like, well, this is how I am. Yeah. So you're the problem, Becca. Like this is how I am, So yeah, that's a good one to pay attention to for sure. But I think it's good to like learn these things and even like talk to other, our friends and each other about like red flags that we might not be as aware of, because while they are specific to each person and situation, there are some like very, very common ones that if you are in a like toxic dating patterns that you might not be aware of. And so to use your friends that you trust to be like, hey, like what red flags do you see? Like these are good conversations to have so we can learn from each other and take that moving forward.
Choose healthy friends to have those conversations with, because you don't want their red flags to start getting in the way of you seeing actual red flags, or painting green or beige or yellow flags red because that person just has their own thing that they're having to deal with, which
for sure
we see that a lot. So talking about inspections, the parents of the buyer come in and they're like, this whole house is trash, and you're like, it has scuffed paint, that's it, that's the only problem, the house is fine. But they're like, nope, this house is a tear down.
Yeah.
Like it has cosmetic issues.
Yeah.
So just, be careful of who you're bringing into your support team.
It's a good parallel.
Those things.
Why do you think it is that so many women seem to paint red flags green? Like, I know that I do that. And I know so many other women struggle with that too. Like, why do you think that is?
I think because we're a bit more nurturing.
Yeah.
We're a bit more caring. We want to believe the best in people. I know that's what it is for me. I want to believe the best in people. And I want to believe that they're good. And I want to believe that with enough love and support and grace that they will overcome whatever their traumas are, whatever their issues are, and be a better person and be a better person to me through that. And I'm like, oh, they didn't have good parents, or like, oh, they have this situation, or like, oh, their dad wasn't good to their mom. So of course they don't know, they don't have a good example. These are the excuses that I make in my head for these guys. And I'm like, but if I just love them enough through this, if I just show them this other way and like be this light, that'll overcome those things. And to a point, maybe it does. But at the same time, you can't be everything to every person. You cannot be the person who fixes someone.
And in fact, it's not your right to.
It's And so that's the thing is like that I had to learn is I'm not here to fix somebody else. I can be me, and I can put out that love, I can put out that positivity, and I can, give them grace, but it doesn't mean that I have to stay in a relationship with them while they figure all that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, in the future, if they have figured it out, if there was enough there, maybe we'll come back together. None of it's happened yet. So, but I'm not sticking around to figure that out, because at the end of the day, it is a personal choice to fix your own red flags.
Yeah.
Nobody else can fix them for you.
Oh,
you have to be able to recognize it and fix it. Yeah, I guess it's time to talk about our personal red flags, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to identify some of mine? Is that how we're doing this? You can. This is a safe space. The friendship has survived the making of a podcast thus far. I feel like I am pretty self-aware of most of my red flags.
I don't have any red flags.
That's a red flag, by the way. If anybody says I don't have any red flags,
I'll talk about my red flags. And I would say one of my red flags is I don't see it as a red flag, but other people take this as a red flag. And maybe that's a red flag how I'm even setting this up. I joke, but also believe that I am right 99% of the time. This is based on data. So this isn't just me saying like, oh, I'm just right. It's like
you can disagree with her, but she has the data, guys. So like you're wrong.
Listen, if I say 2 + 2 = 4, guess what? I'm right. That is a fact. If I say the sky is green, I am not right in that situation. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like in most situations or most things, like I am correct. I am accurate. Mm-hmm. And so I don't mind saying this to people in a joking way like this, but also like guys do not like hearing that. People do not like it. They do not take it well. And so, and I get why, because it's a wild statement to make. Mm-hmm. But again, it's data.
She has the data. Okay. So that's like your biggest red flag.
I don't know if that's my biggest red flag, but it's one of them.
Got it.
I think another red flag, and again, this is what's been told to me, is that I am too independent and men need to be needed. And
so I disagree with that red flag a little bit.
But some guys see it as a red flag.
Okay, some guys, yeah, I guess now it's like we have mixed this up a little bit, and I guess there are blurry lines between deal breakers and red flags, and what's a red flag to one person and not a red flag to the other,
And so, and in some ways, it could be a red flag because I am very content in my independence and in my single life. And so it's hard sometimes for me to branch outside of that. I don't feel like I have as much flexibility in things as I used to when I was younger. And so that's where I could see that being a little bit of a red flag, because I'm like, well, you got to be pretty spectacular to make me want to readjust. Not that I won't. I don't know. I'm right. I like things a certain way.
Yeah, I do know that. She likes things with a 6-pack. You have to be spectacular.
Maybe not a 6.
That's her red flag, by the way, everybody. She will put on blinders.
I do.
For a body, okay?
Way to call me out. Just temporary blinders, okay?
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that. Anything else you'd like to share with the class?
I feel attacked. I feel so called out. I'm like blushing. I'm red right now.
She's as red as that flag right now. No, you see people for who you are, but I do think, and in all of us, like, I think you do value aesthetics, but like what you're looking for, and I think like it could be a red flag that I think it takes you like a beat longer to see past the abs, to be like, is this person my person? And like, who know, I'm not with you every day, so take my whatever observation for what it is.
That's honestly, it's so funny because we've only known each other for a year, and I'm like, you're not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Look at my history of things.
I'm not wrong.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I
mean, I give other guys a chance too.
Yeah. How's that going for you?
Well, I made a podcast. That's how it's going for me. All right, let me see. What else? What other red flags do I have? Maybe my ADHD. Oh, I've gotten really bad about communicating.
Oh, like, I mean, you that in the inbox is full. A lot of unread messages. Like, do you like forget to get back to people sometimes?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But again, this goes back to maybe I'm just not that interested.
Yeah, it really does. And you know what? That's something I got to keep reminding myself over and over again. Like a guy who is really that interested will like text me back. Like, I'm sorry, who is so busy in 2024 that you're not by your phone?
But it's also
in a week.
Like it takes a minute for you to start hitting those dopamine receptors for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of it is I gotta.
The dopamine.
Yeah.
Her reliance on those dopamine hits is a red flag.
It is. It is.
These are very common.
I'm chasing that dopamine.
Yeah. We all are. We all are.
And that's why the pretty guys who make me laugh, that's why I get stuck in them, because I'm like, ooh, dopamine.
Dopamine.
You are aesthetically pleasing and you make me laugh.
So, yeah. That's like, a red flag.
What am I going to do?
When they're aesthetically pleasing and they make you laugh. You usually only get one of those. So if there's both there, like you do need to investigate further for a red flag. Just saying. Yeah. Are there any like silly red flags that you've noticed like over and over again, like the certain type of guy? Like, okay, if you met him at a sports bar, red flag. You're going to be spending every Sunday with the TV for 8 hours in the background with football. And like, that's fine. But for me, that's a red flag a little bit. Like, I don't
think I have any silly red flags.
Okay. Yeah, me neither.
Mine are very serious. I don't know that that's a red flag for you. I think that's like maybe an ick or a preference.
Yeah, you're right. Red flags are a little bit more serious. Like severe substance use and reliance is a red flag.
Yeah.
Your love of football is just an ick.
Abandons you on your first date to go talk to his mom in the car for an hour. That's red flag. Twice.
Wow.
The other people at the bar were like, did he leave you? We can take you home. And I'm like,
that's a date from hell. Wow.
Yeah, that's a story for another time. Gosh.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not proud of some of these moments in my life.
Wow. I'm proud of you though.
Yeah. I went through it so that I can then talk about it here with you all, so that you can learn from my mistakes. This is how I've identified all these red flags.
We're doing the Lord's work, just so everyone knows. We are out in the trenches. You will see that. This is another Easter egg in an upcoming episode. We are literally out in the trenches for you all to identify these red flags for the world.
Here's another red flag. If he asks for pictures.
Oh, yeah. That is a red flag.
Before you've met. I'm like,
that is a red flag.
And I'm not saying,
I'll send funny ones though, like my dog's
sexy
butt.
photos, but I'm talking about like, they're like, no, I want you to send me pictures. You don't need extra pictures of me. My app is up to date.
Also, just like look her up on Instagram, like every other weirdo.
Yeah.
Like,
doesn't have social media. That's kind of a yellow flag.
Honestly, that's a green flag to me. That is a green flag. Like, get me a man who is not on Instagram.
They don't get it, though. I need an Instagram husband.
Well,
someone who will take photos
I
from
want
me.
somebody who will take photos of and with me, but like if you're not on Instagram, like that is green light city. That's great. That's great. That's fine.
Yellow flag for me.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Because again, I'm probably going to forget that you exist.
What if he has 150,000 followers on Instagram? Like, is that a red flag to you?
No.
Oh.
It's a red flag for you.
It's kind of a red flag. Like, it's not necessarily, but it's one of those, like,
I think it is a flag. What's the reason? Why do you have 150,000 followers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's probably like business or maybe there's some kind of influencer. But when I look at like the qualities that can be kind of toxic that I'm very susceptible to and are not compatible with me, like a lot of that, social media, like, I'm sorry, there's a lot of negative things about social media, and the more that somebody's on there, like, honestly, they're probably behind the scenes like dealing with stress and anxiety, and like also they have girls in their DMs and all this like just stuff that it's just like could do without. So it's not necessarily that you're like a bad guy if you have a big social media following, but for me it is like a red flag that I need to pay attention to. And it's not a deal breaker red flag, but it is a red flag. It's indicating something that I might not be compatible with me.
Yellow flag.
Okay, so what yellow? What? Yeah.
It's yellow flag for me.
Yeah.
Not having one and also having a ton of followers. Yellow flags. What are you hiding? And who are you talking to?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a useful like tool for like, you know, looking them up ahead of time. Not that I do that, but you know, like if I were to do those things, you know, it is helpful to further inspect. Which, by the way, like get you a friend who is basically like FBI level with finding these. Like, I have some good friends. Like, I will just like drop a name and they call me the next day. They're like, this is their date of birth. This is where they were born. This is they've been. And it's like, thank you.
That's a red flag, Amber.
Well, it's not me. It's my friends. Like, they're just looking out.
Stalking vicariously.
Okay, fine. Yeah. It is. So that's one of my red flags is like I will allow stalking ahead of time. But I just feel like, honestly, as a woman in this world, like we get a little bit more grace with that because like we have to go out in the world and like fear for our lives sometimes. Okay. Like.
See, okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with like a cursory internet search.
Safety. It's just like a safety thing. Yeah. Right.
But this is both of we both have this red flag. We get a little obsessive. About certain things.
We get so obsessive about certain things. So obsessive.
It's the ADHD.
Like that's like
the hyperactive brain activity.
And you know how many times like over the last year you and I have had the same toxic conversation back and forth. And sometimes we'll like switch whose role it is. Like it's like, you know what, Becca, like I really just think you need to block him because you can move on and you're so much better. And you're like, yeah. And then like the next week it's like the roles are reversed and you're giving me the same speech I gave you the week before. Neither of us are listening to this advice, but we just get stuck over.
Hey, we made up. All things are well and good now. Next week, we're in a fight again.
We're in a fight. But it's like we just keep giving each other the same advice and not taking it back and
It'll
forth.
Stick
like,
eventually.
that is one of our red flags. I'm just going to direct you to
the podcast episodes now.
Yeah, that's a red flag that Becca and I have. We're kind of like the blind leading the blind a little bit with dating, but like also like very self-aware.
But isn't everyone?
Everybody is. Yeah, for sure. I would say like one of my big red flags is that, you know, and it's something like I like have to work on is it takes me a long time to emotionally open up to people, which is why I think I've like I don't want to say attracted, but maybe like allowed to stay in close proximity with other people who are like emotionally unavailable. I think I'm a actually deeply emotionally available person and I love emotional connection with people. But because of things I've been through in my life, it is harder for me with like men in a dating relationship to open up right away. Like it takes me a longer period of time than I think the average person. And so I would say that would be kind of like a red flag for men, because one pattern I notice is they think I'm one person. And then by the time I feel comfortable enough to like be myself and show up as myself, they're like, I'm sorry, like you have pulled the rug out from under me. Who are you?
Yeah.
And for the right person, that's not a deal breaker. That's something that they'll like work with and all that. But that's one of mine.
I think one thing you could also do better with is maybe gradually opening up, because I think you kind of enclosed and then let it all out at once.
No, that's totally it. Yes.
Like just kind of slowly,
like a trickle.
Yeah. And it's as you're building trust with this person, they're getting to know you better. Because not that you shouldn't share things about your life, because you should. We just not everybody has to know everything right away. Like I'm not out there sharing about all of my traumas on like date 1 through 3.
Yeah.
This is something that we will, as it needs to come up, it will come up.
Yeah.
Or like as we're having those deeper conversations where it's like, okay, this information would be important for you to know for lifelong type of things, then we can talk about that on like, okay, do you think that this is a deal breaker? But am I going to talk about my medical stuff on the 1st through 3rd dates? No. But like after we've been talking for a little while and like we're a little bit more engaged in a relationship and I see that maybe this does have a little bit more potential, then okay, let's discuss some of those things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's absolutely great advice. That's something that I'm learning how to do. And definitely. I can feel it too. Like I can literally feel it inside my body where something will come up and I'll have a reaction or, they'll do something or say something. And I know like my true reaction is like one thing, but I'm just not comfortable. And so I stuff it back down. And then I'm like, I'm just going to pretend. I'm just going to like pretend that doesn't bother me or that I have nothing to say or to contribute or, they're saying something and I can't like reciprocate and give back. So yeah. And then it builds, right? Like that builds because that is not authentic and a good way to like, build a healthy relationship. So it does like build and then like just break down like a dam busting open. And then it's like all of this comes out and it's too much. And then that's about when my relationships all crash and burn. It's like the 3-month mark. It's like, so, if I make it with somebody to 3 months and then the dam has busted and then they're like, oh, this is not what I thought, but it's cool. Then that's going to be my person. Yeah. I mean, I will. I'm working on it. I'm working on like a healthier patterns, but for sure. I also have this history of like morphing it's very interrelated with that, like morphing my life around other people, like a codependency that I've had to really, really come to terms with and acknowledge. But I do have codependent tendencies, which surprises a lot of people because I think codependency is not, what it actually is not exactly what it sounds like. Like I'm a very strong, independent person. But that's not like exactly what like codependency is. It's codependency is kind of like stuffing your own needs down or trying to fix other people, rather than letting the chips fall where they may. And living with like good boundaries and things like that. So yeah, I do have those tendencies, which I think are a red flag for like anybody. Codependency is not a healthy pattern. Yeah. I'd say my green flag is I'm pretty self-aware of all my toxicity, I think. I'm in therapy. So
green flag. Wait, do I have any green flags?
Yeah, you do. No, you have a lot. I don't know why. It's just like it's just taking me a minute.
Spot. Okay.
Just like on the spot. Like for sure, you have a lot of green flags. Like you are a very like supportive person. I mean, you have so many green flags. Like what your green flags are. You're just like all green, and then we just have like little sprinklings of red, but it's like mostly just like green. Like Becca is great.
I'm a walking green flag.
Yeah.
I'm a walking Christmas tree.
For real.
Which is mostly green with like some spatters of red and yellow.
Yeah, like some spatters of the rainbow in there. That's good. That's, like, that's humanity. That's being human. So, yeah, I think it's really important that we learn and from our red flags, our own red flags, and from other people's and identifying them. And so I encourage all of you listening to do the work and figure out what your own red flags are. And that's going to be a really important tool. So they say those people who have successful relationships, that you can like identify each other's other like potential red flags with each other and decide whether there's something you can work through or not, and whether you have to pull out of buying that house or help your buyer, like navigate that process, or pull away from a dating relationship that's not meant for you. So super important. And I'm glad we could share some fun stories. And man, this might be like our longest episode ever, weirdly. Told you I have a master's degree in red flags.
Cut some things out of here.
But
yeah, Amber has a master's degree in red flags and a bachelor's in biology. So she is a scientist and a therapist.
Yeah.
and a realtor.
Yeah.
So,
and I will tell you all one more time, a quick shortcut with red flags. And it's not 100% accurate, but it's like 99. Okay. I have a lot of experience with this. If he is 6'4", that is a red flag. Block him now. Thank me later. Thanks for listening, everybody.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.